She threw money at us like it'll buy our love, Mom bragged, unaware I was listening. I walked out of their lives. 6 months later, my stepsister showed up at my place. I was 7 when my father died, cancer, quick and merciless. One day he was coaching my soccer team, the next he was gone, just like that. My mother Vanessa couldn't handle it. Looking at me hurt her too much. Dad's eyes, she said. I had his eyes. Just until I figure things out, she promised, dropping me off at Grandma Linda's house with a single suitcase. I believed her. Children always do. Linda's cottage smelled like cinnamon and old books. She had a garden that bloomed year-round and a cat named Winston who slept on my feet. For the first time since Dad died, I could breathe again. Months passed, seasons changed. My mother's visits grew shorter, less frequent, then stopped altogether, until the day she showed up with a stranger, tall, expensive watch, perfect teeth. "This is Daniel," she announced, twisting a diamond ring I'd never seen before. "We're getting married." My heart stopped. It actually stopped, then lurched painfully forward. "Lily," Daniel nodded at me, checking his phone, already bored with my existence. That night, while Linda made dinner, I overheard them in the living room. "She needs stability, Vanessa, a mother." "I know that. Why do you think I'm here?" "Daniel has a beautiful home. His daughters are around Lily's age. It's perfect." Perfect for whom? I held my breath, waiting for my mother to say it was perfect for me. She didn't. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of a sprawling Tudor house with manicured lawns and windows that gleamed like judgmental eyes. My new home, what a cruel word. Sophia and Rebecca, Daniel's daughters, watched from the staircase as I entered, 14 and 12 to my 8 years. Their matching headbands and cold stares made my stomach twist. "Your room is upstairs," Vanessa said, distracted by Daniel's hand on her waist. "The girls will show you." They showed me, all right, to the smallest bedroom at the end of the hall, previously a storage closet hastily converted with a twin bed and a lamp that buzzed. "Don't touch our things," Sophia warned. "Don't bother our dad," Rebecca added. "Don't expect anything," they said in unison, twin smirks on their pristine faces. I didn't cry until they left, and even then I buried my face in the pillow so no one would hear. That was my first lesson in survival. Be quiet, be invisible, want nothing. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. I existed on the periphery of their perfect family portrait. At dinner, they discussed their days while I pushed food around my plate. In the evenings, they watched movies while I read books in my room. On weekends, they went shopping or to amusement parks, leaving me with the elderly neighbor who smelled like mothballs. Daniel pretended I didn't exist. Vanessa pretended not to notice. School became my sanctuary. I buried myself in books and earned perfect grades. Teachers praised me. Students mostly ignored me. It was better than home. Sophia and Rebecca made sure I understood my place. They borrowed my homework only to destroy it. They whispered lies to their friends who then spread rumors about me. They took my clothes and returned them stained or torn. "They're just being sisters," Vanessa said when I finally gathered the courage to tell her. "You need to try harder to fit in." Try harder, as if their cruelty was somehow my fault. The only peace I found was during my weekend visits to Linda. She noticed how thin I'd become, how I flinched at sudden movements, how I apologized for existing. "You can stay here," she offered one Sunday evening as Daniel's car idled in the driveway, permanently. I wanted to, God, how I wanted to, but Vanessa was my mother, and children are supposed to be with their mothers, aren't they? Everything changed when Vanessa announced she was pregnant. Daniel actually smiled at me that day, the only time I'd seen genuine emotion on his face. "We'll need to make some changes," Vanessa said, hand resting on her still flat stomach. Those changes became clear a week later. "We need your room for the nursery," Daniel informed me over breakfast, not bothering to look up from his newspaper. "You'll sleep in the basement." The basement, unfinished, concrete floors, one small window near the ceiling. "But it's mine," I whispered, immediately regretting the words. Daniel's newspaper lowered. His eyes narrowed. "Nothing in this house is yours," he said, each word precise and cold. "Nothing." Vanessa said nothing, just sipped her tea, eyes fixed on some point beyond my shoulder. I moved to the basement that weekend. They didn't help. Sophia and Rebecca watched from the top of the stairs, whispering and giggling as I dragged my mattress down alone. That night in the damp darkness, listening to the house creak above me, I made a decision. I couldn't stay, not anymore. Linda opened her door at 2 a.m., took one look at my tear-stained face, and pulled me inside without a word. Winston wound around my ankles, purring as if I'd never left. "I'll call your mother in the morning," she said, tucking me into the bed that had always been mine in her heart. Vanessa arrived just after breakfast, Daniel looming behind her in the doorway. "This is ridiculous, Lily," she snapped. "Get your things." I stood my ground, something fragile but fierce growing in my chest. "No," one syllable, the first time I'd ever defied her. What followed was ugly. Accusations, threats, Daniel's voice rising, then Linda's rising higher, the words ungrateful and selfish hurled at me like stones. "If you stay, don't expect anything from us," Vanessa finally said, one hand protectively over her stomach. "Nothing. It should have hurt more that my own mother could discard me so easily. Instead, I felt oddly light, free." Linda became my legal guardian a month later. Vanessa didn't contest it, didn't even show up for the hearing. With Linda, I healed, slowly, painfully, but I healed. She enrolled me in a new school, found me a therapist who specialized in childhood trauma, let me cry and rage and grieve for all I'd lost. "You are loved," she told me every night before bed. "You are worthy, you are enough." Eventually, I started to believe her. Years passed, I excelled in school, made real friends, discovered a passion for photography, captured beauty in unexpected places. Linda beamed with pride at my high school graduation, cried when I received a scholarship to NYU, helped me pack for my freshman year. "Your father would be so proud," she said, pressing his old watch into my palm. "He always knew you were destined for greatness." I was 19 when Linda was diagnosed with heart failure, 20 when she died peacefully in her sleep. Winston curled at her feet until the end. Her will was simple. The cottage, her savings, everything came to me. I took a semester off to handle her affairs, numb with grief. That's when Vanessa called, for the first time in nearly a decade. "I heard about Linda," she said, voice tentative. "I'm sorry." I said nothing, throat too tight for words. "We should talk, Lily. Things are different now." Different, I would learn just how different. Daniel had lost his job 3 years earlier. Bad investments had drained their savings. The Tudor house was in foreclosure. Sophia was in rehab. Rebecca had dropped out of college. And Benjamin, my half-brother I'd never met, had special needs requiring expensive therapies. I agreed to meet them at a diner halfway between our towns. Curiosity, not forgiveness, driving me. Vanessa looked older than her years. Daniel's perfect teeth were yellow from smoking. Rebecca couldn't meet my eyes, and Benjamin, 10 years old with Dad's smile and gentle spirit. He showed me his dinosaur collection while the adults made awkward conversation. "We've made mistakes," Vanessa admitted after Benjamin went to the bathroom with Daniel. "Terrible mistakes." Rebecca nodded, eyes fixed on her coffee cup. "We were awful to you." "It wasn't your fault," I told Rebecca, surprising myself with the realization that I meant it. "You were a child following your father's lead." "We're trying to be better," Vanessa said, reaching for my hand. I let her take it. "For Benjamin's sake, for all our sakes." I didn't forgive them that day. Forgiveness would come later in small increments, but I did agree to be part of Benjamin's life. Over the next year, I settled into a strange new normal. Visits with Benjamin every other weekend, cautious conversations with Vanessa, distance but civility with Daniel. Sophia remained absent, her recovery a topic no one discussed. I sold Linda's cottage, unable to bear its emptiness, and used the money to finish college and buy a small apartment in the city. My photography career gained traction. A gallery exhibited my work. Life moved forward. I started noticing subtle signs that all wasn't well financially in their household. Daniel's luxury car disappeared, replaced by a modest sedan. Vanessa stopped wearing her diamond jewelry. During one visit, I overheard a tense phone call where Daniel argued with someone about extension options and margin calls. The facade cracked further when Rebecca confided that her father had been making increasingly desperate investment decisions. "He lost a bunch in cryptocurrency last year," she whispered while we watched Benjamin play. "Then he doubled down on some real estate development that fell through. Mom doesn't even know how bad it is." Then Benjamin got sick, pneumonia that his compromised immune system couldn't fight, the hospital bills mounted on top of their already precarious finances. I paid them, all of them, and when Daniel finally admitted they were 6 months behind on their mortgage, I gave them enough to stop the foreclosure. When Rebecca needed tuition for community college, I provided it. Not for them, for Benjamin, for the chance to be the sister I'd never been allowed to be. "You're an angel," Vanessa said, hugging me after I bought Benjamin the specialized wheelchair he needed. "We don't deserve you." She was right. They didn't, but Benjamin did. For 2 years, this fragile piece held. I built my career, visited when I could, and financially supported them from a safe emotional distance. Until the day I arrived unannounced with a birthday gift for Benjamin. The house was empty except for Vanessa on the phone in the kitchen, back turned to the door. "She's such a sucker," she was saying, laughter in her voice, "throwing money at us like it'll buy our love." My blood turned to ice. "I know," Vanessa continued, unaware of my presence. "Daniel says we just need to keep playing the happy family card until she writes us into her will. Between Linda's money and her photography career, she's worth a fortune." I must have made a sound. Vanessa turned, phone dropping from nerveless fingers. "Lily," she gasped. Don't," I cut her off, voice steadier than I felt. "Don't insult us both by lying." I left the gift on the counter and walked out, ignored her calls, her texts, the increasingly desperate voicemails. A week later, Daniel showed up at my apartment, Sophia and Rebecca flanking him like bodyguards. "You've misunderstood," he began, smooth as ever. "Did I? What part? The part where you've been manipulating me for money, or the part where you plan to continue until you got everything?" "Benjamin needs you," Sophia interjected, speaking to me directly for the first time in years. "Don't punish him for our mistakes." A low blow, effective because she was right. Benjamin was innocent in all this. "I'll continue supporting Benjamin's medical needs," I said finally, "directly to the providers, not through you. The rest of our relationship is over." "You can't just cut us off," Daniel sputtered, mask slipping to reveal the desperation beneath. "After everything we've done." "Everything you've done?" I laughed, the sound sharp and unfamiliar. "Yes, let's talk about everything you've done. How you treated a grieving child like an unwanted pet. How you banished me to a basement. How you stood by while your daughters tormented me. How you've spent the last 3 years using me as your personal ATM." I stepped closer, found strength in their collective flinch. "I owe you nothing, I never did." They left, but it wasn't the end. The emotional warfare began. Vanessa's tearful pleas, Daniel's thinly veiled threats of legal action, Rebecca's remorseful emails, Sophia's sudden desire to reconnect with her sister. Benjamin was their nuclear option. Phone calls where he asked why I didn't visit anymore, cards with his wobbly handwriting asking if he'd done something wrong. It nearly broke me, nearly. But Linda had taught me something vital. Love doesn't manipulate, love doesn't use, love doesn't leave you empty. I arranged to see Benjamin at his school, away from their influence. Explained as gently as I could that I would always be his sister, would always care for him, but needed space from the rest of the family. "Because they're mean to you?" he asked, perception sharp despite his challenges. "Because they don't understand boundaries," I answered carefully. He nodded, wisdom beyond his years in his eyes. "They're mean to me sometimes too, when I can't do things right." My heart shattered all over again. I contacted a lawyer that afternoon, set up a trust for Benjamin, ensured his medical needs would be covered regardless of his parents' financial situation, included provisions for his care after high school. Then I sold my apartment, accepted a job offer in New York, and left without a forwarding address. Vanessa found me anyway, showed up at a gallery opening 6 months later, thinner and sharper than before. "You can't just vanish," she hissed, causing heads to turn. "We're your family. Family doesn't exploit family," I replied, keeping my voice even. "You taught me that." "I was your mother when it mattered," she countered, desperation clear in her eyes. "No," I corrected gently. "Linda was my mother when it mattered. You were just the woman who gave birth to me." Security escorted her out. I finished my champagne with trembling hands, then went home to my new apartment, my new life, my hard-won peace. That was 3 years ago. Benjamin writes to me through a monitored email account. He's thriving in a specialized program I helped find. We video chat on holidays, it's enough. Vanessa made one final, desperate attempt to manipulate her way back into my life 6 months after I moved. A tearful voicemail about finding a lump in her breast, needing family, needing me. I sent flowers to the hospital and called her doctor directly. There was no lump, no appointment, no cancer scare. The next week, distant relatives I barely knew began calling. Cousins, aunts, even my father's sister who hadn't spoken to me since his funeral, all with the same message: family forgives, family reconciles, family doesn't abandon family. I changed my number that afternoon, hired a lawyer to handle any further communication. It was the final door closing between us. Vanessa's messages stopped after that. Daniel never contacted me at all. Sophia completed rehab and sent a lengthy, seemingly genuine apology that I acknowledged but didn't fully accept. Rebecca's path was different. On the anniversary of Linda's death, she showed up at my door with a small potted plant and tears in her eyes. "I went back to the house," she said when I reluctantly let her in, "to the basement where you slept. I sat there for hours trying to understand how we could have treated you that way." She showed me photos on her phone. The Tudor house was dilapidated now, being sold at auction. The basement was empty except for water stains and peeling paint. "I remember holding the door closed while you begged to use the bathroom," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. "I remember laughing while you cried. I was cruel because it made me feel powerful when I felt powerless in my own home." Her remorse felt genuine, raw. She didn't ask for forgiveness or money or anything at all. "I just needed you to know that I understand now and I'm trying to be better." Rebecca graduated college and now works at a nonprofit helping foster children. Irony isn't lost on me, but perhaps it's not irony at all. Perhaps it's redemption. As for me, I've built a life they know nothing about. A successful career, a small circle of loyal friends, a vintage cottage reminiscent of Linda's, complete with a garden and a cat named Winston II. I've learned that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who pick you up when the world has torn you apart. Sometimes it's the grandmother who opens her door at 2 a.m. Sometimes it's the colleagues who become friends, the neighbors who bring soup when you're sick, the mentors who believe in your talent. Sometimes family is what you build from the ashes of what you've lost. I keep my father's watch on my nightstand, Linda's recipe box in my kitchen, Benjamin's drawings on my refrigerator. These are my treasures, these are my truths. The rest, the pain, the betrayal, the years of longing for a mother's love that never came, I've released into the wind. Not forgotten, never forgotten, but no longer chains binding me to a past I can't change. Some days are harder than others, some wounds reopen without warning, but I am no longer that silent child in the basement believing I deserved less. I am enough, I have always been enough, and that knowledge, hard won through tears and time, is worth everything.